According to a research report conducted in 2018, 1/3 of active buyers of prostitution are married. And I can say from my own experience, from having consultations with hundreds of men addicted to paying for sex, these numbers are definitely accurate. Initially, this was a surprise to me. I did not expect to see this many men in relationships, married, or even with families who are going out and seeking escorts. But through talking with married men and even working with them, I found some very unique insight on this problem. So if you are a man in a relationship or married, watch this video to the end because it might help you break free from this double life. The reason for men acting out in a committed relationship cannot really be chalked up to any one issue. I'll show you a couple different case studies to help you understand why men pay for sex in relationships and their process of getting clean. Because as you will see, it can be due to trauma within that relationship. It can be lack of connection or intimacy issues with his wife, or just due to the man's pathology of always having sexual escapes in his life. And then there's even the group of guys who are happily married and love their wives and love their kids, but they still are going and acting out. But if there's one thing that I see in common with all of these men who are in relationships and paying for it, it's that paying for sex deeply damages the relationship and affects his ability to connect with his woman. That is a common denominator after every single man that I've seen. And this is evident in our first case study. A year ago, I worked with a guy who reached out after a very unfortunate and dark time in his life. He told me that he was addicted to escorts and he was regularly paying for them for about 2 to 3 years. During this time frame, he found a great woman that he liked. They had similar values and they became very serious. However, still during this time, he was struggling with the double life. You know, he was seeing escorts on the side. He was struggling with pornography as well. And he really wanted to quit. You know, he had the incentive, he had the reasons to quit, but it was a real problem for him. It made him feel real shameful, real guilty, and it hurt him to his core. But he still had hope, right? He still had hope because he wanted to marry this woman. He thought his problem would actually go away once they got married, but it turned out it didn't. They got married, he relapsed 2 or 3 times after that, and his wife was kind of suspicious. She knew something was off with him. She could just sense it, you know, he would say, and she would ask him, like, are you okay? Like, is there anything wrong? He would just have to kind of play it off with work, like, long day at work, you know, just a little tired, stuff like that. Eventually, it got to a point where she found out, right? She went through his phone, saw some of the contacts that he was hitting up, and questioned him on it a little bit. And, you know, she was pretty much threatening divorce. This was a very unfortunate time when he reached out to me, and he was severely damaged from this. A lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and his identity, like as a man and as a husband, was shattered. So after having that consultation and beginning to work with him, his case for why he was seeking after these escorts was not because he was facing problems with his wife. In fact, it was far from that. Their relationship was very good despite him kind of feeling a little disconnected because it was hard for him to be intimate with his wife due to these issues. But outside of that, you know, everything was very smooth in a relationship. He was seeking escorts because he had a history of seeking sexual escapes. It started with porn, it really intensified into campsites, and he eventually began looking up escort websites. It was a real problem with him. So when working with him, we had to solve the root problem that was going on in his life, which was leading him to go and act out. And that involved a couple different things. One, we had to break a lot of rationalizations. There was a big rationalization or lie that he had in his life that I need to go and act out. That can be escorts, that can be pornography, masturbation, whatever. I need to go and act out because I need to get this urge out of my system so I can finish my work, get things done, and I just need to get rid of this because it's a distraction. It's a deterrent from the work that I want to do. So learning how to shoot down this lie and other rationalizations allowed him to stay clean without having to fight against his own body. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Cutting all those lies down and changing those beliefs that's allowed him to really pick the path of staying clean a lot easier. We also started to understand why he got urges. Sometimes it was due to stress or boredom, so we taught him how to deal with that stress and boredom ahead of time, as well as how to deal with the discomfort in the moment, so when he had those pain agents, it didn't snowball into him wanting to go and escape. And I think that's a really big thing for a lot of guys. That we have that discomfort, we have that pain, which is an internal stimulus to go and act out or go and escape or go and push that pain away or not think about it and just change the way that we feel, when in reality we needed to move into that pain, understand what's going on, and create solutions. So that, among a bunch of other things, allowed him to regain control and become clean from escorts and porn. And at this spot, there was he became a new man, basically. Like, he was proud of the changes that he made, and that carried over into the success of his work and even with his relationship with his wife. And it was an extremely cool thing to see how that whole thing developed and where they're at now. Now, there are other reasons why married men seek escorts. Another common one is due to relationship issues. I think this is probably a little bit more common, if I'm being real. I had a guy who more recently was a bit older. He had a family, wife, kids, very religious, and he was working on a very successful business. And much like the past case study, he had a history of seeking sexual escapes with masturbation, with magazines, stuff like that. But the bigger issue was that he felt like his wife did not love him anymore. That was a really big pain in his life, and their intimacy was just not the same as it used to be. She was focused on going back to school, which was taken away from time with him and her and the kids, and she began also to deny sex because of stress and low energy, just not feeling like it. They just really weren't on the same page, and he started to feel extremely distant from his wife. He began to question why she wanted to go back to school when he makes enough money, he can support her without doing that, and he started to have these doubts and fears creep into his mind. It just made him try to rationalize the whole situation. It was like, am I just not good enough? Would she rather spend time doing other things, working without me? Does she even love me anymore? Like, he's trying to make sense of this whole thing because obviously there's something off. And there's more and more of these thoughts that were popping up, and they became more and more of a reality because he's now acting out with escorts, seeking relief from his pain. And it's just proving his point, basically, because he's becoming more and more distant with his wife now that he's having these escapes in the first place. It was a whole mess. All of those belief sets got more potent for him too, and more self-fulfilling. So what our game plan looked like was first by just solving the whole shame cycle that he was going on. That worsened the entire problem. That was the fuel to the whole thing. We had to stop this spiral of negative thoughts that destroyed his sanity, honestly, and would lead him to go and act out. There would be a ton of these negative thoughts and false beliefs that we had to address individually because it didn't matter what we did. Like, if we did anything else but that, and those issues were still going on in his head and those negative beliefs continued, his recovery would be stunted, right? It'd be fruitless. So those beliefs were all self-fulfilling, and it made him feel like he was flawed or not in control. Honestly, he started to realize that it was like this weird victim mentality that would continue to shame him into going and acting out again. It'll lower his self-esteem and give him an easier way to go and seek escape. And the thing was, all of those belief sets that he had were not true. Once he started to address these root problems, not only was he staying clean from escorts and from pornography and from the websites, but his relationship with his wife got so much better. And his wife started to notice it too. Like, he became a more attractive man, he became a better man, they were more intimate with one another, and became close again and started to regularly have sex again, where sometimes even she would initiate it. And he started to have this huge identity shift. A guy whose wife that does not love him, who's going to hell because of all the acting out behavior that he does, to being the leader, being the father and the husband that he wants to be, just killing it in life, focusing on things that he cares about, and honestly enjoying the fruits of his labor, especially given that age and what he's built up for himself. And at that point, he no longer needed to go and act out because he had built up a life where he didn't need to escape anymore. So all in all, what I've learned from guys who are acting out with their wives or committed girlfriends is that they pretty much always have lies or false beliefs or rationalizations that need to be addressed. This is usually the problem, along with having a lot of pain agents that lead them to go and seek a sexual escape. And the beautiful thing about this is I think it's easier for married men to get clean than a single guy. And that's because, they've already built up a good life for themselves in terms of having a partner, in terms of having a good career. And this is very helpful because in the recovery process, when you gain back that extra time and energy and you just feel better, you feel like yourself again, no shame, no guilt, and you feel like this masculine drive and ambition that was lost when you were acting out, all of that can just be placed back into what you've already been building up. Like what actually matters in your life. And that can lead to you feeling like this new life. Like you have this breath of fresh air almost. Like you're just like, oh, oh, like I can finally like chill and enjoy and be fulfilled and be grateful for what I've built, right? And just enjoy that whole thing a lot more. And that sense of fulfillment and that identity shift really makes people not want to go back. Like once you get a taste of it, you're like, oh, I never need to go and escape again. This is what I really want. So there's hope out there, fellas, and I want you to see that. But action really needs to be taken now because I've seen this go both ways. The case studies that I've shown you are the stories of guys who took action to achieve freedom. And even before joining Recovery Blueprint, like these were guys who were already going to therapy, seeking other options, trying to talk to their friends, or just do something about this. The thing is, I've heard even more men whose lives were in their marriages were severely hurt, newlyweds getting divorced, girlfriends leaving, guys getting sexual diseases even though they're in relationships, and even having to call their wives from the county jail to go and pick them up. Like I've heard some crazy stuff. So this really can go both ways. And I pray to God that if you feel stuck in this situation yourself and you relate to any of these stories that I mentioned to you today. So I pray that if you feel stuck in this situation and you relate to any of these stories that I mentioned, I pray that you can take action and really break free from this. So if you feel alone, or maybe you've tried therapy in the past or have done other things that really haven't helped you, and you just want an actionable approach, an actionable solution, not like therapy where you just focus on the past but don't really have a game plan, and you want something that is actionable, so that you can break free and have this step-by-step, have clarity in what you need to focus on, then I encourage you to click the link below in the pinned comments to apply for the Recovery Blueprint program. This is the only program on the market that is specifically designed for men who are struggling with sex workers and built by someone who's conquered it themselves. So not only will you be getting all the strategies and the process that you need, but you're also going to be getting support that you need. That's going to be from myself, from my team, and other high-level men in the community on their path to freedom as well. And I encourage you to take action now because honestly, man, the cost of inaction is continuing to live with the same problem, just for longer. So let's change that, and let's change that together. So I encourage you to take action. Stay strong, boys. Stay safe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.